Now that you have your design ready, you have shapes that you can actually add color into. So if you don't have a paint set like the one that I was using, like we have in class, a watercolor set would work. You can use water-based crayon, or not crayons, but markers. These are Crayola markers and these are water-based. So you can actually use these and turn them into paint. So I'll show you how to do that in a minute. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to find my first place where I know it's a shape. So looking here, if I put my finger in this space, I can't get back out because the lines have me trapped in there. So I am going to choose my first color that I'm going to use. So I think I'm going to go with red. And I'm going to use that line as a border to stay inside of. Now if you printed using paint, what can happen is if your brush touches that black line, it's going to mix into your color. So you want to get right up to it so you fill in your shape. But you want to be careful about not re-wetting or activating that paint. So now I have my first shape filled in. So when I look at this and I look at my design, I could say, well, I have shapes, but I only have one red shape. So if I say the red shape, we're all going to know to look here. Well, when I looked at Wassily Kandinsky's paintings, I noticed something that he did good and well as a designer is he would repeat colors. He would show repetition. So if I paint this shape red, I'm repeating red, but it's a different shape. It's smaller than the other one, so I'm repeating it, but I can't really call it a pattern because I'm not repeating it exactly the same way in order. A pattern, you would have to go in order, and it would have to repeat the same way. Here I'm repeating, so I'm using repetition, but I'm using it in a different way. Now if I want to, I can even change colors. I'm going to show you guys the trick with the markers I mentioned a second ago. So let's say I want to use this sort of blue-green color in this shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go along one side here, and I'm going to add some color to one side. But I'm not going to fill in the whole thing. So I just added some color. And what I'm going to do is if I have a paintbrush, or if I don't have a paintbrush, I could use a wet Q-tip, or I could take a paper towel or a napkin and twist it and dip the end in water. So I would use the end of the Q-tip or the paper towel like the end of a paintbrush. And if I take my wet paper towel, my tool, and I touch it to the water-based marker, you'll notice the ink is starting to move and act like paint. So I can pull that across the shape and actually get that color filled in. And what looks pretty cool too is I get this kind of 3D effect where one side where I put the marker on first, that turns to that dark green, but then as it moves across it fades away and turns into a light green. So you guys know, as good artists and designers, I'm not going to just use that color in one place. So here I'm going to add it to this shape, then to this shape on this, or this side of the shape I should say. I'm going to tap out my brush. It touched a little bit of that black paint there. And then I just take a clean wet brush and I touch it to that green marker line, and that pulls it across and turns it into paint. And I get that nice 3D effect. So you might even want to try, if you have paint and markers, you might want to try both techniques to see which one you like the most. So I'm going to continue choosing colors to paint my shapes with. And I want to think about this idea of repetition. So if I use a color, like if I use this yellow, I'm not just going to use it in one place. Now my lines are separating my shapes, but what might get confusing, if I paint this part yellow, then people might look at it and start to think it's just one shape. So if I want people to see all the shapes that I've printed, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I leave spaces between them. Like this would sort of look like it's connected to this yellow shape if they're both yellow. So it might read as one shape. But if I put yellow down here, I still can see that I've painted two yellow shapes. But I might even decide I want to use it in a third place. So let's say I load my brush again. I go over to here. Now this one is very close to this other yellow shape, but it only touches on the corner. So it touches in a way that they're connected, but because they only touch in the corner, I still see this is a yellow shape and this is a separate yellow shape. So you're going to continue painting your shapes, and you might even want to fill in the space around them. So you're going to choose colors that you think look interesting, and you're going to show repetition by using them in more than one place. So good luck working.